Oh, it has been way too long. Yogi Roth, Ashley Adamson with you. It is the first happy hour of the 2022 season. Thanks to our friends, yes, at Deschutes for giving us an excuse to hang out together every Tuesday during the regular season, Yogs. How you doing?
I'm good. Definitely a
Okay.
weekend where you had some celebratory Deschutes and some where maybe you needed a couple more, depending where you call home, right? Eugene or Salt Lake City or Boulder. But as we all know, you have to get off Twitter to learn this, but it was only week one. It was just week one. We're
Amen.
okay. We're
We love
okay.
overreacting. It's like our favorite thing to do in the media and favorite thing that fans love to do. But yeah, to your point, the league overall went 9-3. Yes, there were some great performances, which we'll get into. There were some gut wrenching moments and finishes, which we'll get into. But let's start with USC, Yogs, because Trojans won big the first game of the Lincoln Riley era. You got to call it, see it live. So they did what they were supposed to do against Rice. But tell me, give me some I don't know, something good, something behind the scenes, and your biggest takeaway from these new look Trojans.
Well, the evident and the obvious one is like this offense, is my partner and our buddy Ted Robinson said, like they come at you in waves. Like that was so evident. You just watch that first drive and it's Jordan Addison, Taj Washington, Raleek Brown, Travis Dye, Jordan Addison for touchdown. Like it just kept coming at you. And I think when you watch Caleb, he's real. He's as real as they are in America. And I think what I love about him the most, I did a sit down with him that just aired this week on the It Factory, where he said, I just want a seat at the table. Like that's his goal among the USC greats, right? We're talking Carson Palmer, Mark Sanchez, Matt Barkley, and on and on and on, right? Liner, all the guys that have played at a really high level. Some have won, ridiculous awards like the Heisman. And I think against Rice, just one game, his only eighth start of his life. I think you sat there, and I was like, yeah, they're going to invite him to the dinner. We'll see if he gets a seat, but I project that he will. I think he's that guy. I think on the other side, in terms of what did we find out that maybe people don't know about? Well, this staff, all they talked about, Ash, was the word adversity heading into the game. All they wanted was to see how their team would handle adversity, and Rice drove the ball down the field. They were running the ball at will at times, and I think the defensive side met that adversity. And then as the second half went on, you saw guys like Corey Foreman come into his own, a five-star recruit. After they lost Romello Height to a targeting penalty, he was disqualified for the remainder of the game. Like I think I just saw guys get more confident, and then you saw what 3 fixes for touchdowns as the game concluded. So that's the big thing is they met adversity. Not many people thought they would in the first game of the season against Rice, but they did, and I thought they met it, welcomed it, and ran with it. And I think they're going to meet it again on Saturday against Stanford.
Yeah, absolutely. We got our first Pac-12 game of the year on the farm next week between USC and Stanford. And, I think when you look at USC coming in, everybody was pretty confident this offense was going to be able to move the ball, right? People felt pretty good about that, but there were and probably still are some questions around how good can the defense be, but seeing that defense get 3 pick sixes kind of within like a pretty short amount of time too. It was fun to watch, and I'm sure it was a fun game to call. They, by the way, are now in the AP top 10 for the first time since December 2017. So it's been a minute, but they are now officially a top 10 team again for whatever that matters coming out of week one, which we will continue to reiterate that it is week one. And so maybe that's where we go next, Yogs. There's a couple of fan bases who are licking their wounds a little bit in Utah and Oregon, the two teams that played for the Pac-12 championship last year. Um, let's start with the Ducks because there was a lot surrounding, Dan Lanning. I don't think anyone expected Oregon to win this game, right? Like they were going in there against the defending national champs with sort of nothing to lose. A game played in Atlanta. But what was your takeaway from what happened down in Atlanta with the Ducks? It obviously fallen short in just about every facet in the end of the day.
Yeah, well, we're going to be in Eugene this weekend. Get a chance to call the home opener in Dan Lanning's era, and I'm sure they can't wait to get back and play. Right, everybody knows that adage. If you get rolled in a game, you just want to go play again. I think Dan Lanning even said that in the post game press conference. His guys would go practice right now if they could. They just want to get back to the field. When I watched it in real time, or when I watched the film back, it wasn't necessarily as dramatic of a blowout as you saw as the score just kept growing all afternoon. To me, when it's 14-0, they're driving and they're moving the ball, and they move the ball through the majority of the early parts of this game. Did well on third down. We're matching them in that regard to a degree. Bo Nix was getting the ball out, hitting spot receivers, backs checking it down. He was doing his thing in the zone run game, but then it was that pick. And my mind immediately flashed back to Alabama, Washington in the CFP. And I was in Atlanta, and it was all Alabama fans, much like it was on this past Saturday with all Georgia fans. But UW scored, right? I think it was Dante Pettis. He scored in the corner of the end zone to kind of give him just a little bit of life. And that to me is what Oregon needed. And in a game like that, when you're in that environment, you need some life. And they needed that chance. And it didn't show up. And after that, you just saw, I don't think the wheels ever came off. You just saw a team methodically move the ball down the field. And you saw a team in Oregon miss so many tackles. I mean, we're going to talk about that in the open of our broadcast this weekend, because it's unlike what we normally would see from the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, and I think, you look at Bo Nix certainly, and he had played Georgia 3 times previous in his career at Auburn. And those two interceptions, and you mentioned the one, but both of his interceptions led to touchdowns for Georgia. And when you're playing a team that is that good, every small critical mistake gets magnified and blown up. So they will move on. Yeah, I'm excited for them to kind of hit the reset button, and we'll see again the difference between week 1 and week 2. Utah, on the other hand, man, that one stung. I think just a gut wrenching finish in the swamp, because there were so many moments, Yogs, as you were watching it, that it felt like they could have closed out the game or gone up 2 scores, done something that would have allowed them to take control. And they just, whether it was the 2 goal line stands that they weren't able to convert on, and then that closing sequence, a throw that I know Cam Rising is going to want back for the rest of his career, just throwing that pick right at the end with 22 seconds left on the clock. It felt like it was all right there, and it just kind of disintegrated through their fingers.
Yeah, I mean, you were watching it in real time. I can only imagine what you guys were doing in the touchdown room. As I watched it back, here I'm in LA. We all know the heat is crazy. I just need more and more Deschutes, because it feels like it's Gainesville, right? It's just like sweltering heat right now.
Bring
And I
it
was
on.
watching it.
By the way, I agree. I'm wearing this because I'm like loving our friends at Deschutes, but I'm sweating underneath the sweatshirt. This was not the best pick. I'm going to cut the sleeves off by the end of this thing, but keep going.
Hey, you could fit in down south. Cut those sleeves off. Get some jorts while you're at it. As you hear my dog continually bark here. Monkey, take it easy. It's happy hour. All right. So with that said, hold on. Let me let this guy out. So to me, when I look at that game, like, you can tell how warm it was down there, and there were factors in that game. But when you went back and watched it, and I was heartbroken, Ash. I was sick to my stomach, because there was every chance for Utah to win the game in the fashion that a lot of us thought it would happen in, right? A tough game, a competitive setting, an elite quarterback on the come up when Anthony Richardson, but Utah would prevail. And when they didn't capitalize in the red zone, that's a recipe to lose, right? Let alone the final play that you referenced in the pick. But as I watched it, I was like, oh man, like, I can't believe this just went down the way that it did. And then as you watch like the aftermath, right, like stranded in the airport, like there were just so many things just compounded to that. But I will say this, offensively, they still got a ton of firepower. I mean, Brent Keithy to me was an absolute freak. Tavion Thomas, he did his thing. Cam Rising, minus probably, obviously the last throw and another one. He did what he did, right? Completed almost 70% of his passes. He moves the ball down the field as well as anybody in this league. Defensively, to me, is where I think we took it a little for granted. Like, I thought this linebacking core would just meet the moment of what was left, or meet the moment of what had left. Talking about Devin Lloyd and other talented players there. And it was just hard for Lander Barton, a true freshman, to play. And so many times on that zone read with Anthony Richardson, if you hesitate a little bit with a guy like that, it's a wrap. And that's what we saw. So I know Kyle Whittingham was frustrated with that. And his weekly press conference, he talked about that being something they have to shore up, and they will, right? This is a team who last year started 1-2. And then what they do, they end up in the Rose Bowl, almost, beating Ohio State. I think this is a team that is still the best team in our league. I think they're the most complete team. They still have some area to grow, but I expect them to go on a nice little run here.
Yeah, no doubt. It certainly would have felt a lot different if they had pulled that one out and either forced overtime or gotten that touchdown and won that game. It sets up, I'd say, the perception a little bit differently of Utah moving forward. But at the end of the day, if they can pull it together, which you can tell that they have the pieces, and it'll be interesting to see how the defense comes together. There's a long, long way to go. And they proved to us last year that it's not how you start, it's how you finish. No doubt about that. I think one of the big storylines, and it was a storyline all off season, and certainly we saw it play out week 1, but just some of the transfers and some of the guys that are wearing different uniforms, some within the Pac-12, some who transferred in from other 4-year schools, just showing up and balling. And Two that I think are most notable to me, obviously Caleb Williams, we already talked about him, but Jaden DeLora and Jacob Cowing, those two, I think we're going to be saying those names an awful lot. This was a totally different Arizona team. Like this wasn't the Arizona team that got so close in the fourth quarter a bunch last year and then kind of fell flat. This wasn't the Arizona team where Jedd Fisch is looking in his quarterback room going, who doesn't have a sling on their shoulder? Who can go out there and play? I mean, this felt totally different. So to go and take it to San Diego State at their place when they're opening up a new stadium, again, it's only week one and I want to temper all the expectations, but this felt very different to me and probably maybe the most impressive win of the weekend.
Yeah, no, let's go all in. Whatever, man. Let's go all in on Arizona right now and go crazy with the expectations. Because why not? Right? I thought Jaden DeLora, to me, coming out of week one, looked to be he had the most impressive performance, individual performance. And I put Cowing at 3. And in between them was Caleb Williams. So 2 out of the top 3 for a team that, yes, won a game last year, but we all know the circumstances around that. Basically one win in the last handful of years. But Jedd Fisch, who last year was referred at times as Jed Lasso. I love that moniker for him or that nickname because it's true. Like he's got a team to continually believe. And every time I talked to somebody in that program this summer, they were like, dude, I'm telling you, Jacob Cowan. Yeah, Jaden DeLora added 15 pounds. Where do you see him? He's operating in this pro style system and thriving. And we saw it. We saw it on display. And it wasn't Gainesville. It wasn't the swamp. It wasn't Atlanta. Like we know that. But it wasn't an easy place, right? The Pac-12 was often on the other side of the joke of San Diego State or the Mountain West Conference last year, right? Not the same deal right now, right? They put it on San Diego State. It wasn't even close. It got tight a little bit there based on some special teams gaps with the punt blocked in the end zone. But overall, you watch that game and it was clear who the better team was. And we called that one last year. I remember being there on campus for that game where they got rolled. Right? Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. So I just love the belief that Jedd Fisch has with his team and that they have. And then you add in some of the young players, right? Transfers, yes, agree. They're going to elevate this team. But Tetsuroa McMillan, that touchdown catch in the back of the end zone where he gets popped, bang, bang play, beauty. You look at Dorian Singer, even like the running back room that got elevated. Michael Wiley played some of his best ball because he's getting pressed by freshman Speedy Luke. He's getting pressed by transfer DJ Johnson, all guys that are contributing on offense. So I'm bullish on this team. And I wonder Saturday night, we know what that town can do when they believe in their team. Saturday night, with Mike Leach coming to town, 8 o'clock, I'm going and I'm throwing down with Arizona. I am. I think they'll move the ball, and I think Johnny Nansen has had enough time to rep defensively how to at least manage the air raid. We'll find out. But he's had time. He had all offseason to study this. So I'm excited to see how this thing plays out.
It's going to be fun. And I hope the fans show up in droves and pack that place and are loud as hell because, they showed in week one that this is a totally different team and they've kind of taken a huge step forward, and we'll see if they can take another step forward. Jaden DeLora, by the way, named Pac-12 Player of the Week. First time an Arizona player has won that award since J.J. Taylor in 2018. So it's been a minute. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, it's been a little while. And we should mention, you mentioned Mike Leach. He was the one who recruited Jaden DeLora to Pullman a few years back. So things always coming full circle here in the world that is the transfer portal in 2022. We got to give, I know we're running short on time, but we got to give a shout out to Oregon State, who had a phenomenal win over Boise. That again, if you're a Beaver fan, I think you just felt good about the way your team showed up. And certainly everybody's got stuff to clean up between week one and week two. But shout out to Jaden Grant. He was awesome on the defensive end. Washington gets their first win under Kalen DeBoer. And I got to tell you, speaking of transfers, Michael Penix Jr. was fantastic. 4 touchdowns, no picks, 345 yards passing. If you haven't seen the clip, UW fans, of Alex Cook giving DeBoer the game ball in the locker room afterwards, go look it up. It'll just like make your day, brighten your day. I was watching that with a big old smile on my face late Saturday night. So some special wins, no doubt about it. I'm excited to see Jake Dickert and those Cougs head to Wisconsin, his old stomping grounds. Sounds like he got 200 tickets for family and friends. He said this was an expensive game for him. And he said, and because my entire family is all diehard Badger fans, he said he had to buy them all Coug gear. So this is going to be an expensive game for Jake Dickert.
Let's go.
Yeah.
How many but
there's a lot to look forward to and a lot of storylines. I guess 2 last things as we wrap up here. The game you're most looking forward to, And the team that you believe in most as we are 1 week in
Mm.
to the 2022 season, who is it?
Okay. Well, I'll couch it knowing that I'm calling Oregon. Like, of course, can't wait to get there, see a bounce back opportunity. It's tough with the game I'm most looking forward to because I'm excited to see what Arizona State can do in Stillwater against an offense, firepower offense in Oklahoma State. But I'm going to go in the Pac-12, right? How many times are we going to see USC go play at Stanford? Might be the last time. We don't know. We don't know what the future is going to be once they bounce to another league. So I'm curious to watch this one, and I think the firepower and offense on both sides of the ball, it might be as good as we'll see in the league in conference play. Believe in Tanner McKee that much and his weapons. Michael Wilson, how about another come from behind story? This guy
Yeah.
missed pretty much the last calendar year. That touchdown catch, good as I saw in all of college football this past weekend. That was incredible. Him climbing the
that
ladder.
one felt good.
Oh yeah, so that's the game I'm most excited about. It's big stage, right? It's Hurt Street, it's Reese Davis, it's the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to that one. I think the team I believe in the most, I'm going to go with Oregon State as you referenced. Again, I don't think actually they have a first round pick, but they don't have a weakness, and Luke Musgrave might become that by the end of the year. And we have to give Chance Nolan his props. All last season, the criticism was one thing, and it was deep ball accuracy. He went to work in the offseason. He showed in the spring game a little better than he was the year before. He went to work all summer. And then what did he do? Dropped a beauty in that was dropped on the first drive, but then two more as the first half went on. And to me, that type of accuracy, they can take advantage with their run game play action passes. Look out, and they're going to need it. They're going to need it. They're going into a tough environment against Jay Kaner, and then they've got a tough one the week after that on the Pac-12 networks, and then boom, SC comes to town. I look forward to watching this team under Jonathan Smith get some props because they were the most impressive team in all phases that I saw all weekend long.
A lot to be excited about, a lot of question marks, and a lot of games still left to play. So, week one, cheers to you, Yogs. I'm going to go cut the sleeves off of this sweatshirt. It's hot out here.
I'm going to go have a couple more.
The road show, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City. Excited to go see our Utes, Utah and Southern Utah. Our tailgate coverage, I believe, begins at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. So get your Deschutes and your coffee in whatever order you want going early on Saturday. We will see you then.